I never imagined the words, "I don't need dead weight like you anymore," would come from the woman who once swore she couldn't live without me. Yet that night, her night of triumph, my wife raised her glass to celebrate her appointment as chief engineer, only to tell me she wanted a divorce. 11 years together, dismissed with a toast and a smirk. I didn't argue. I didn't even beg. I simply set the keys on the table, the ones that had opened our first home, our first life together, and walked out. She mocked me online for months afterward. Sarcastic captions, veiled barbs on Instagram, little jabs disguised as jokes. She made sure everyone knew she had climbed higher, and that I had been left in the shadows. It still astonishes me how wrong I was about her. After over a decade at her side, I thought I knew her soul. I was naive. Everything unraveled long before that final dinner, though at the time I refused to see it. Back then I was 24, working long shifts for a logistics firm, earning just under $50,000 a year. She was barely 21, fresh from university, starting as a junior engineer with a modest salary. We didn't care about numbers, we cared about building something together. After 3 years, we bought our first small house. Mortgage in my name, bills on my shoulders. She covered groceries, little extras, the lighter side of living. It wasn't a problem, it was balance. I never once made her feel inferior for bringing home less. We were a team, or so I believed. Those early years were golden. Breakfast together at the same chipped kitchen table, her talking about calculations and circuit boards, me telling her which delivery routes I had conquered that day. Sundays meant cooking in tandem, dancing around each other in the kitchen, burning garlic bread and laughing about it. Evenings ended curled on the sofa, watching shows until we fell asleep. My younger brother looked at us with admiration. You two are proof that real love exists. We had our own rhythms, private jokes only we understood, whispered plans for children, for travels, for a shared future. And then came her promotions. At first, they were small steps. 5,000 here, a recognition there. We celebrated them with wine and dinners, proud of each other's paths. She was happy, and I was proud of her brilliance. But the real shift began the year she surpassed me. It started subtly. Comments dropped like needles into ordinary moments. Why did you buy that? When I spent a little on myself. Maybe you should think bigger, whenever I talked about work. At restaurants, she would glance at me over the menu and say, I can cover this, don't worry. Not in kindness, but with a tone sharpened by new superiority. My brother noticed it first. She doesn't talk to you the same anymore, man. I defended her, said she was stressed, but deep inside I knew something had shifted. By the time she was earning nearly double my salary, the humiliations became public. In front of friends, she joked, maybe he should find something better paying. She dismissed my suggestions for weekend trips with, we're not on the same economic level. She offered to pay for dinners as though I were some dependent. Comparisons became her favorite weapon. The Benjamin's bought their house because they're both professionals. Anthony's wife is also an engineer. No wonder they can afford Paris. Our own home, the one I had worked years to maintain, suddenly wasn't good enough. This place feels small for my aspirations, she sneered one night. She began attending professional events alone. You wouldn't understand the conversations, she explained, sliding into dresses I had never seen before. They're highly technical, above your level. We argued about moving. I reminded her of the walls we had painted together, the mortgage payments I had shouldered. Can I at least have the chance to catch up? I asked bitterly. She only looked at me as if I were speaking another language. My brother urged me to open my eyes. She's belittling you, bro. This isn't normal. I refused to believe him. 11 years couldn't be reduced to a ledger of salaries. Love had to weigh more than numbers on a payslip. And then came March 28th. She had arranged a special dinner. Candles, wine, a dress that shimmered under the dim light. I thought it was our ritual celebration, another moment to toast her achievements as we always had. I sat down, my chest warm with pride, my smile unguarded. Finally, after years of watching her climb, she had reached the peak. Chief engineer, $90,000 a year. She poured the wine, but only into her own glass. I have something to tell you, she said. eyes gleaming with a mix of triumph and cruelty. This promotion changes everything. I'm finally where I deserve to be. I waited for the clink of glasses, the toast that had always sealed our victories. Instead, her words landed with the force of a guillotine. I don't need dead weight like you anymore. For a moment, the room seemed to spin. 11 years of laughter, arguments, mornings, and nights, all of it shattered into fragments by a single sentence. What? The word stumbled out of me, hoarse and fragile. She didn't flinch. She leaned back, eyes glittering with cold triumph. I earn almost twice as much as you now. I deserve someone on my level, professionally, financially, socially, someone who belongs beside me in this new chapter. From her bag, she slid out a stack of papers. The sharp edges of the legal forms sliced through the candlelit air. I already spoke to a lawyer. Divorce. I'm keeping the house. I can handle the mortgage on my own now. My chest tightened. My world, our world, folded in on itself within seconds. You planned this, I whispered. Her voice was mechanical, clinical. You can't give me what I need anymore. It's not personal, it's logical. I stood there hollowed out, watching the woman I thought I knew erase me as though I were a line in a ledger. For her, our 11 years together were not a tapestry of loyalty, struggle, and shared dreams. They were a miscalculation, an error to be corrected by a better investment. I didn't plead. I didn't rage. I simply picked up the keys I had once placed in her hand, placed them back on the table, and walked out. I refused to beg to remain in the life of someone who saw me as ballast dragging her down. That night, I collapsed on my brother's couch. At 2 in the morning, he found me staring into nothing. What happened, bro? She just posted something strange. I didn't want to look. I didn't need to see how she was celebrating my erasure. But he showed me anyway. A picture of her raising a glass alone, smile radiant, caption beneath it. Free at last. New chapters deserve new beginnings. 11 years reduced to an Instagram story. That was the night I realized money hadn't changed her. It had simply unmasked her. The divorce was swift, too swift. She had calculated every step, every clause. 3 days later, she called me, her voice detached. It'll be amicable. I'll keep the house, take the mortgage. You can keep your car, your things. No drama. The mortgage was $3,200 a month. With her $90,000 salary, just over $5,500 gross. It would be tight, but manageable. She prided herself on being efficient, on knowing her numbers. But she had overlooked one thing. For 11 years, every utility, every contract, every bill that kept that house alive had been in my name. Internet, cable, electricity, gas, insurance, even the landscaping. While she was chasing promotions, I had quietly shouldered the unglamorous work of keeping our lives running. On the day we signed the papers, I let her take the house. Then, with deliberate calm, I canceled everything. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Her voice was venomous. Are you really this petty? I exhaled slowly, savoring the shift in tone. I thought you didn't need dead weight anymore. These were the services I paid for. You wanted independence, now you have it. That's childish. No, that's logical. The silence that followed was more satisfying than any argument. That night, my brother forwarded screenshots of her new posts. Some people can't handle losing control, he muttered. Her Instagram blazed with bravado. Finally free of toxic, limiting energies. A photo of her in the living room of our ex-house captioned, "My castle, my rules." My brother shook his head. She's making you into the villain. I decided not to respond. I would not descend into her theater of curated images and venomous captions. My dignity was worth more than a digital war. In the following weeks, my brother became my unwilling reporter. Every day, he sent me her carefully staged humiliations. A new man appeared, an engineer, of course. A selfie in a restaurant captioned, "Finally, someone who understands my level." There were snapshots of boutique salons, designer boutiques, $500 shoes gleaming beneath the words, "This is what real success looks like." My brother, ever pragmatic, began doing the math. Bro, she's spending like she's making 150 grand, not 90. She's burning through her rise faster than she thinks. And in those moments, I realized something. She hadn't just cast me aside, she was sprinting toward a future built on appearances, on hollow status. And one day, inevitably, she would discover the cost of her own illusions. My brother's prediction turned out to be precise. Between the crushing $3,200 mortgage, the bills she now had to manage on her own, and the carefully curated lifestyle she flaunted online, nearly every dollar of her salary bled into maintaining an image. Success wasn't feeding her, it was devouring her. Meanwhile, I signed the lease on a modest two-bedroom apartment. No marble counters, no luxury finishes, but it was mine. Clean, quiet, and free of debts or drama. For the first time in years, I breathed easily. No judgmental sighs across the dinner table, no constant comparisons, no weight pressing on my chest. Her Instagram, though, remained relentless. Weekend getaways, candlelit dinners at exclusive places, endless shopping bags dangling from her arm. Every week brought another spectacle. She's living her best life, people commented. You deserve this, queen, others cheered. Even some of our old mutual friends chimed in. One I'd once called a brother wrote, full upgrade. My brother's fury boiled over. How can they applaud her after the way she trashed you? I just shook my head. People don't admire the truth. They admire the illusion of triumph. She's selling fantasy, and they're buying it. But beneath her carefully staged photos, I noticed cracks. The smiles looked taut, rehearsed. Captions contradicted themselves. Real success isn't about showing off, she wrote, beneath a photo flaunting a designer handbag. Some people will never understand the effort behind working weekends, she posted with a forced grin in her office. My brother spotted it too. She's slowing down, not as many luxury shots as before. And he was right. The five-star restaurants faded into sporadic cafe posts. Designer shopping sprees appeared less often. The shine of her new life dulled at the edges. Around that time, something shifted in my own life. At work, an offer I had declined years earlier came back to the table. Back then, I had chosen stability, thinking my wife and I needed consistency to secure our future. But now, free from her shadow, I made the decision for myself. I accepted. A $5,000 raise. Not fortune, but progress. Not fireworks, but freedom. My brother grinned when I told him. See? Look how you grow without someone dragging you down. 8 months after the divorce, her feed took a new turn. Luxury remained, but more thinly spread, like paint on a cracking wall. Her captions became philosophical. True success is inner peace, not material validation. Or happiness cannot be bought. My brother nearly choked laughing. Now happiness can't be bought? Where was this wisdom when she threw you away for not earning enough? But I saw the truth behind the irony. She was learning, slowly, painfully, that $90,000 a year wasn't salvation if you burned through it chasing applause. She had gambled her future for an image, and while she sought validation online, I was building quietly in reality. The irony was almost poetic. She had branded me dead weight, but I was the one standing firm, grounded, while her glittering tower began to sway. 12 months after the divorce, my phone jolted me awake at 7 in the morning. My brother's voice was urgent. Turn on the news, now. I fumbled for the remote. There it was, plastered across the headlines. Corruption scandal in major engineering firm. Embezzlement tied to infrastructure projects. Half of management to be dismissed. My phone vibrated with a new message from my brother. She's on the list. I sat back, not in glee, but with a strange calm. Not joy, something deeper, sharper. It was justice, raw and undeniable. The woman who had deemed me unworthy of her level now had no level at all. 90,000 to nothing, overnight. Her Instagram fell silent. No more restaurant photos, no glowing smiles. Silence louder than any post. Days later, another update from my brother. The engineer boyfriend's gone, not in a single picture anymore. Predictable. The man who understood her level had abandoned her the moment she lost it. He had applied the same cold equation she once used against me. A week later, a timid new post appeared, embracing this professional transition, grateful for the chance to reevaluate my priorities. My brother scoffed. Now it's an opportunity, please. But I knew better. Behind that brittle caption was a truth she couldn't admit aloud. Everything she had built on appearance and pride had collapsed. She had gambled her marriage, her stability, and her dignity for status, and lost. And I had been the so-called dead weight. Yet here I stood, lighter than ever, with my feet firmly planted on solid ground. Unemployed, drowning under a $3,200 mortgage, and shackled to the image she could no longer afford, she spiraled into a genuine crisis. The first message arrived 2 weeks later. "Hi, we need to talk about some pending divorce issues." I read it, then deleted it. She had demanded a complete severing, and I had granted it. The second came 3 days after. "I'm going through a difficult situation. I think we could help each other." My brother shook his head. "Don't respond, brother. It'll only get uglier." He was right. The third message abandoned pretense. "Please, I need us to talk. It's important." By the fourth, desperation bled through every word. "I'm going to lose the house if I don't get help soon. Just until I find work. Please." I stared at the glowing screen, my brother watching me silently. "You going to answer?" he asked. I hesitated. A part of me, the man who had once shared 11 years of love, routines, and dreams, wanted to extend a hand. But another part, the man who had clawed back dignity from humiliation, knew it wasn't my burden to carry. "Not yet," I murmured. Then came the call. Friday night. Her name lit up my phone after months of silence. I answered. "Hello." Her voice was cracked, fragile. "Thank you for picking up. I know I don't deserve it." I could hear the wetness in her throat, the sound of tears barely contained. "I lost my job. The man I was with, he left me when he found out. I have nothing, no savings, no safety net. I'm going to lose the house." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry," I said honestly. And I was. But there was no joy in her collapse, only a strange emptiness. She inhaled shakily. "I know this is asking too much, but could you help me? Just for a little while. Cover a few services until I get back on my feet. I swear I'll pay you back." The irony struck me like a cruel joke. The woman who had once called me dead weight now begged for my support. "Do you remember what you told me that last night at dinner?" I asked. Silence. "You said you didn't need a dead weight like me in your life." Her whisper came, brittle as glass. "I made a terrible mistake. I was cruel, arrogant, stupid, but I don't deserve to lose everything for it." "It's not about what you deserve," I said quietly. "It's about choices and the price that follows. Please." Her voice broke into pleading. 11 years. They have to mean something. "They do," I replied. "They mean enough that it hurt when you reduce them to a number on a paycheck. That's something I'll never forget." A long pause stretched between us. Finally, I said, "You can fix this, but not with me. You can learn, grow, and never treat another person the way you treated me. That's all I can give you." I ended the call. My brother had listened in silence. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Sad for her," I admitted, but relieved for myself. 3 months later, my brother told me she had finally lost the house. At 33, she was back living with her parents. Her Instagram, once a shrine to luxury, now held captions about new beginnings and lessons learned. The kingdom she built on pride had crumbled into borrowed walls. Meanwhile, my life had bloomed in directions I hadn't expected. The new job opened doors, trainings, connections, rediscoveries of who I was without her shadow hovering above me. That's where I met Andrea. It was a training course, nothing glamorous, but she shone with a grounded warmth. 30 years old, a doctor, also divorced. What struck me most was what she never asked. She never once inquired about my salary, Our first conversations weren't about jobs or status. They were about books, places we longed to see, the stubborn dreams that kept us alive. By our fifth date, as we lingered over coffee, she smiled and said, "You know what I like about you? You're stable. Not financially, emotionally. I've dated men who made double, triple what you do, but they were insecure, competitive, exhausting. You're different." Her words landed like balm on old wounds. For years I had been measured, weighed, and dismissed by numbers. With Andrea, for the first time, I was valued for who I was, not for what I could earn. And that was the sweetest irony of all. Andrea valued character over titles, serenity over ruthless ambition. With her, silence was never heavy, laughter was effortless, and dignity was never questioned. My brother, who had stood by me through the storm, couldn't hide his pride. "Look how far you've come, brother." Turns out the so-called dead weight was the only one who knew how to stand firm. He was right. My ex-wife had discovered too late that climbing without character is a climb that always collapses. Success built on arrogance is fragile, a glass tower destined to crack. Real independence is not simply about a paycheck. It is about responsibility, about balance, about cherishing relationships instead of burning them out of pride. I, in turn, had learned something just as vital. My worth as a man was never tied to my salary. True respect, true love, does not fluctuate with numbers in a bank account. A partner who values you in abundance and in scarcity alike. 6 months later, over dinner with Andrea, it struck me. For the first time in years, I hadn't spoken about money once. We had debated novels, shared absurd stories from work, planned a weekend in the mountains. That was what love looked like when stripped of vanity. Being seen, being chosen for who you are, not for what you provide. In a twisted way, my ex-wife had done me a favor. By branding me dead weight, she had freed me from chains disguised as partnership. Her rejection opened the door to someone who recognized my true worth. The moral of this story is simple yet cutting. Money does not define your value as a person, but it does expose the true character of those around you. So, to anyone reading who has been belittled for what they earn, hear this. You are not the problem. If your partner makes you feel small because of a paycheck, the flaw lies in them, not you. Someone who truly loves you will honor you regardless of your income, because love cannot be measured in dollars. My brother, with his blunt wisdom, summarized it best. She lost someone who loved her for who she was. You lost someone who loved you for what you had, and sometimes, brother, you need to be called dead weight just to realize you're the one with your feet on the ground. And he was right.